Welcome to the Diary of an SEO episode number 4, and today we're going to look at how we use the wonderful on-page optimization software NeuronWriter. Now what we've done here is we have put into the software, actually let me just go back and show you the projects. So we create a project, which is one of my clients' business names in Telescreen. Then we put in here the query that we're wanting to optimize for and that we're wanting to see where that particular page ranks for in the SERPs. So in this case, now this is actually done by one of my SEO geniuses on the 1st of May by the looks of it. So it'll be just interesting to see. So retractable fly screens is the keyword. And if we click on that, it brings up we've imported the content from the actual website. And if we click on the competition here, we will see the rankings at the time that this scan was done. So what you can see here is that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We rank number 5 according to NeuronWriter. And when we look at what it does is it gives us a score. Now how it does this, I don't know exactly how it does this obviously, but it uses an AI assisted algorithm to basically scrape the top 10 results. If we've got 10, it'll do more, it's down to 30, but we're really only interested in the top 10. It assigns a score of each ranking page, not the website, the actual page, based on the semantic and topical relevance of the words that it displays the rankings as they are, but then it assembles, as I understand it, all the words, the relevant semantic indexing and semantic terms and keywords that are found on that page, and all of these pages that get it to scan, that you select. And it then assembles the frequency of those terms as they're used in headings and subheadings and body copy. And it presents that as a kind of aggregated, average of those terms for these top ranking sites. So technically speaking, when this assessment had been done, we should have excluded, I believe, this one and probably this one at 48. Because these aren't high scores, so even though the websites are ranking in the first 10. Okay, so anyway, what we'll just note here quickly is that the score for my client was 65 and the ranking was number 5 according to NeuronWriter at the time. Now, what my team member did is go through this. So this is the actual use. This is the really useful part of NeuronWriter. This is the content that we have on the page here. So we can instantly see there's 2,207 words, which is pretty good. We can look at the terms that are in the headings here and the terms in the article. Okay, so that's a useful distinction to make, and it will use these terms to create the overall score, both in the headings, so the H1 and H2 to H3, and in the article itself. So a green score means that it's meeting the suggestion by NeuronWriter for the frequency, so this is easier to see in these terms here. Now the body copy terms are divided up into basic, which as far as I understand is the main sort of key sorts of terms that it would expect to see, and then extended, which are other terms. Now it will color code your keyword density basically around these terms. So as you can see, if we look here, we can see that Australian, the word Australian, and the word best retractable, these are in red, and also screen solutions down here. So now red should mean that this is over optimized. Okay, so normally we would work to decrease, say let's take this one, screen solutions. We would look through the copy. Now what we can do is we can click on this here and we can highlight the term in the text. So then we can go through, there it is, so we've got screen solutions, so it shows us where all those references are. Now, normally we would reduce this because this looks over-optimized. It's not really a dangerous term to be over-optimized for. And in this case, I believe, what we found is if we did actually swap these terms out, we don't just delete them, obviously, because then we're not going to have, human readable grammar. So what we do is we have to actually reword them, put a different 2 or 3 words in here for that, for what we're trying to say. We did that for that one, and the score actually went down, which is interesting. Not sure if that was the case also for best retractable and Australian, but seeing as our main term is retractable fly screens and retractable screens, I would be worried if we had majorly over-optimized for retractable fly screen or retractable screen. As you can see, these are coloured yellow or beige, so they are sort of slightly over the maximum range that is suggested. Now, I work primarily in Australia with Australian clients, and my own businesses are Australian. Personally, my hunch is, and I don't really necessarily have any sort of study to show this, but my hunch is we can tend to get away with a little bit more over-optimization than perhaps in a different market like the .com market, or the US market, or a global market. That's just so in Australia with the .com.au site, we can tend to get away with that a little bit more, but you've got to be careful. So the beauty of this is that this allows us to play around. So if we take our main term here, we can see that it's in the H1 and there's nothing else diluting it in the H1, so that's good. Not necessarily the best term from a direct response copywriting perspective, I realise that, but in this case we're really just wanting to optimise our ranking. So we've got the H1, we've got, actually that should be, that's interesting. I'll have to check on the site. That shouldn't be an H1 there, that should be an H. We should change that to H2, which will do that. Score, and the score updates pretty well live. It takes maybe 2 or 3 seconds. The score hasn't changed there. So we can see here retractable, all this is used. So look, it is on the surface a bit over-optimized for retractable fly screens. It probably could afford to have a few of those dropped off, but we shall see. So anyway, this is what it's done. Now my writer has gone through carefully, and this is a little bit tedious. It's gone through all of these green terms. You can see when he first looked at it, when it had this is the updated score. It will be interesting to rerun this. In fact, we'll do this now. So you can see the original score was 65. So now I'm not quite sure how we re-update that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to this project, and we'll just run the query again. So remember that was 65 and it was ranking number 2. We're going to put in here a new query, and we're going to go retractable fly screens. We've set it for the relevant country, relevant language, and we're going to hit start. Okay, so that's going to be working away here in the meantime. So we'll go back now and just look at this. So what we did, just bring that, wait for that to, yeah, there we go. So you can see that we ended up with a score of 83, and what shows here the little trophy cup, which is the assessed top score of what's in the top 10 at the time. So with the optimization that my writer has done here, what he's basically done is selected what of these terms he can reasonably fit in with good grammar into the body copy. Now we've got 2,200 words to play with, which is handy. Just one tip which may be useful for some of you is if you want to have a home page or a landing page which primarily has direct response sales copy at the top of it with call to action buttons for leads or sales, that's fine. And then put down towards the bottom of the page so you can see all our features and benefits, blah blah blah. Now what we've got down here is an H2. This is essentially right at the bottom of the page, is a comprehensive buyer's guide on how to find the best retractable screens door supplier. Okay, so this is something you can do in pretty well every niche, and you just basically write out some useful points, make sure it's high value content that's going to add value to somebody that is potentially looking at buying whatever product or service the website selling. Alright, so this area here obviously gives us a lot more scope to use some of these terms, and you can see that my writer has gone right down to the bottom here and included a lot of these terms where they're green. You can see they're included. Where they're beige, they may have more references than it suggests, but that's not really a big problem. And the grey ones here mean that they're not used at all. So for instance, retractable fly screen doors Melbourne, we don't service Melbourne, so we certainly wouldn't be using that. Easy Screens is a competitor, we certainly wouldn't be using that. Okay, so then we just save that and then copy this into the actual website, which, just to show you, is, well, let's just do the search. Now bear in mind, because we've just re-indexed this, the results could be anywhere, so it's always nice to see that my pay-per-click advertising is working well. So he's ranked number 1 in pay-per-click. Now here we go. Okay, cool. So he's still number 3. So this is the number 1 result, number 2 result, and number 3 result. There he is there. I think we've discussed this in another episode of the Diary of an SEO, and I'd obviously love him to be number 2, but this player here is the big national player and typically has always ranked number 1. They actually used to be my client years and years ago, and has recently been knocked off by this one here, so that's a whole nother story. But I'm reasonably happy with this. This is the main term, as it gets 5,400 searches a month nationally, so that's quite a decent lot of search volume for a niche like this. Alright, so let's see. So that's basically how it works. You just do that, you save it, you make the changes, you can save it in here, and then you've got to copy it obviously into your website. That can, you've got to be careful how you do that. Obviously you can't necessarily just select all and paste it in, depending on what kind of website editor you use. We use mostly WordPress. So let's go back now to my projects, telescreens. Let's see if this has updated at all. Okay, here we go. So it has updated. It hasn't populated these things here, but it's bringing up the results. So let's see. Okay, cool. So it's showing now us as ranking number 4. We're actually ranking number 3. Not necessarily perfectly accurate in that regard, but look here. You can see now that our page score is 81, so it's gone from 65 to 81. Our word length in words is 2,399, which is by far the highest of all of them except the number 13 result. So this is very cool. And if we wanted to go ahead and, in fact, let's just do it. What we're going to do is we'll just go through the whole process to get to that pane that I showed you before. I'm going to untick these ones here because they don't have a high enough score. This one here, let's say retractable screens Melbourne's got a 68 score, which is actually pretty good. Other than that, there's nothing that impressive. So we're just going to leave it like that, and we're going to click on next, and that is just going to do a little bit of thinking. Great, so now it's processed that. You can see the top score here is now us. We're 81, and this is a blank canvas. So now what we would do is we go try to auto import content, and we would, let's just click on the actually that's interesting, isn't it? You know what's very interesting there? So this is very interesting. It's actually picked up a sub-page. Let's see. I don't think it's done that. Let's just cancel that. Go back to the competition. No, it's picking up here. It's picking up the home page. That is something quite interesting, though. I'm not quite sure. So this may be an issue because it's an Australian site. It's not able to scrape and read .com.au perfectly accurately. I'm not quite sure. So that is very interesting. We would actually need to drop this URL because what it's done is the page 1 ranking is actually picking up retractable fly screens Brisbane. Very interesting. Anyway, so for the sake of the discussion though, to keep going, so before this video gets too long, we're going to go back to the home page, and so we're just going to go back to content editor, and we're going to try to auto import. We're going to put the URL in there and import. We'll just wait while that works. And boom, that only took about 3 seconds. There it is. So there's our copy, just like I showed you before. It's ranking our copy as 83 score with the top competitor at 81, but we are the top competitors. There's a little bit of inaccuracy there, but as you can see, it really hasn't really changed that much, even though I deselected those sort of lower scoring ones. In actual fact, there's only one that's red now. So that's pretty good. And with this now, once I think the consensus with using Neuron is once you get to about 80, you're at the point of the law of diminishing returns. So you could spend another hour trying to, squeeze some of these extra terms in and, maybe reduce the use of this a tiny bit. But it's probably not really going to help that much. Generally, I find you've got to add probably between 3 to 6 of these ones in the extended to get one extra score in the point, one extra point in the score. These ones can typically add more than one, more than that, or they're easier to score with. So look, we could add in types of doors. We could put a phrase in somewhere that says, we cater for multiple different types of doors. So that'd probably be a good addition there. But, I'm not really worried about that now. So because we've got this page ranked really well. What is interesting though is that as much as we've tried to optimize that page very well for the home page very well for this term, strangely enough it's not pulling that page, it's pulling a sub page because I'm searching based in Brisbane. So that is an interesting observation there. But anyway, I think the video is long enough now, so we'll finish it off there, and I hope that's given you a good overview of how to use Neuron. Now, the one final thing though I should say is in the competition, I'm sure everybody who is familiar with SEO watching this would know that just because we have the highest on-page score does not mean we're necessarily going to rank automatically #1 by a long shot. And I've covered this before in a previous episode. The reason why we're not ranking #1 or #2 is simply because these, for whatever reason, have more authority. Now with Freedom Screens, very easy to see, they have a MOSDA of 22. Our MOSDA is quite low, but the actual page authority is 22 or so. Let's just quickly see. So I'm just going to use a tool called Mangools for this, which is a Chrome extension. And yep, so look, I personally can't explain this. It's always been an issue with this site. I think the general opinion amongst SEOs is don't really worry about it. But our page authority on the home page is 33. That's pretty good, right? Let's just, out of interest, because I might be proving myself wrong here, and this is where obviously SEO is a part art, part science, right? Let's run Mangools for this. So look at that, page authority is 32. So yep, so our page authority on the home page is pretty much, we're slightly beating them. Their DA is also much lower than their page authority, but nowhere near as much lower than ours. So I think this is I don't know, it's a bit of a glitch from my perspective in terms of that. Now let's see if I think if I go back here, there we go. Not sure if I've got enough credits left now in Mangools, so I would need to show the exact data. Sometimes Mangools does get its knickers in a knot a little bit when trying to display a subpage data. Let's just see. Okay, so Mangools wasn't really playing, so there's plenty of different ways to do this. I've just dropped it into a free DAPA checker. What we've found out here is very interesting, hey? So we've got a page authority of 24, and if let's just drop it back to the home page, and it's 33. Okay, so that is a bit of an anomaly why it's doing that. I'll have to have a look at that. It's probably a bit of what's called keyword cannibalization happening, and what we might have to do, because we don't really want this. See, if we go this term, Brisbane, we do want to rank well for this as well, but it's not actually ranking that well. It's ranking, well, #4. Yeah, #4 for the Brisbane term, and #3 for the head term. So it's quite strange. Again, another sort of one of those things with SEO. Not always easy to explain what's going on. And I don't really want that, I don't really want it indexing that page for this search term. So we'll have to see with the newly optimized homepage, whether that will replace this in the course of time. It was only re-indexed a few days ago. So let's keep an eye on it. There we go. It's interesting. The homepage is down here at number 8 or so. So quite interesting what Google's doing at the moment, but bearing in mind also that it's only just right on the tail end of a major core update, so things are bouncing around all over the place. There we go. I think that's enough. Hope it's been useful. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the like button and subscribe for more episodes of The Diary of an SEO. We'll chat to you then.